All right, hello everybody. So my name is Teal, and I'm currently a dietetics student at St. Catherine's University. And today I want to talk about something that has been talked about in social media, books, magazines, everywhere. And so people have beaten down this topic a lot, but often really don't understand it. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about gluten. Everyone's favorite topic. In this video, I'm going to go over a couple things. First of all, what is gluten? A lot of people avoid it and actually have no idea what it is. I also want to address the difference between celiac, an intolerance, or just an all-out preference. What kind of foods contain gluten? What do you need to avoid if you're trying to not eat gluten? What's the issues with cross-contamination? And lastly, I'm going to talk about what if you think you might have celiac disease or some sort of intolerance. I'm going to go over the symptoms and what's the next step in the process if you think that you're suffering from celiac. So before we jump into all the nitty-gritty details, I was actually diagnosed with celiac in 2013. At the time, it was kind of a crossing between being really convenient to be a celiac and being really not convenient to be a celiac. It was kind of just being highlighted in the media, and a lot of times people would be misunderstanding about it because they would hear, jokes about it not being a real thing. Because of that, a lot of people just think gluten is simply like bread. Not really the case. It's actually a protein made up of two smaller proteins, glutenin and gliadin. Now that we've kind of talked about gluten on the micro scale, let's talk about it on the macro scale. So where can we find these proteins? Where can we find gluten? Any products that contain wheat, barley, rye, or triticale, which is actually a cross between wheat and rye. Foods that contain wheat flours like crackers, breads, doughs, bakery items, cakes, cookies, that kind of thing. Those are going to be your obvious sources of gluten, but there are a lot of what they call like hidden sources of gluten. In the manufacturing process, they often need anti-caking agents, which can be derived from wheat. In the cosmetics industry, it's one of those things that people don't really think about, like toothpaste, floss, shampoos, lotion. They often contain something called tocopherols, which is a source of vitamin E. They'll derive that from wheat oil. Is that something you need to be concerned about? I would say yes if it's going to be in your mouth. So flosses, toothpaste, mouthwash, gum even, I know it's not a cosmetic. Those things I would definitely make sure are gluten-free if you have celiac. Lotions and shampoos. Let's say you just put on lotion and you forgot, and 3 minutes later you go and you make a meal for yourself. Then you use your hands, and then you use your hands to eat the food. If you have celiac, that's probably enough gluten to actually stimulate an autoimmune response. Be wary or just buy gluten-free lotions. Soaps, shampoos, conditioners, I would say buy those gluten-free if your child has celiac. It's a lot sloppier of a process and it can drip into their mouth. If you're an adult, you can kind of skirt it a little bit when you're in the shower. Just don't let it drip in your mouth. So now that we know about what is gluten and where can it be found, let's talk about who actually needs to avoid it. This is a little bit controversial as far as intolerance goes. If you have an intolerance, think about, like a lactose intolerance. It's just an upset stomach or a rash, and it's something that passes with time. Whereas celiac is actually an autoimmune disorder. What happens when someone with celiac consumes gluten is that it actually starts to degrade their villi. Your villi is in your small intestine, and it's responsible for increasing surface area. So when you have an increased surface area, there's more chemistry that can be done in that area. So it's really important for absorbing nutrients. So over time, if someone with celiac is consuming gluten repeatedly, that's going to degrade their villi, and that can lead to all sorts of issues. Just think about malnutrition in general. It's like severe malnutrition, which can lead to so many things. The only cure for this at the moment is a gluten-free diet. That's why it's important to understand what gluten is, where you can find it, how to read labels. What about eating gluten-free for a preference, just to increase your overall health status? Say you open up a magazine and you see, this celebrity eats gluten-free, this person eats gluten-free, and that's someone you admire. Or You hear your friend is eating gluten-free, so you decide to give it a try. So there's nothing inherently wrong with not eating gluten. However, it can be associated with deficiencies in vitamins and minerals that are often found in gluten-containing foods. If you are going to eat gluten-free as a health boost, it's important you understand what foods you need to be eating to replenish those nutrients that are usually found in gluten-containing foods. Zinc, magnesium, fiber, these are important nutrients that you need. So eating gluten-free as a health boost isn't always the best option. In addition to that, gluten-free specialty items like gluten-free breads, cookies, cakes, pizzas, what have you, they have added fats and sugars to make up for the texture. Mainly fat is added to make up for the texture, and sugar and even salt is added to make up for the flavor due to the lack of gluten. Let's talk about what do you do if you think you might have an intolerance or you might even be celiac. Personal story, when I was diagnosed with celiac, I had no suspicion that I had it. I just had really upset stomach, just some weird bowel things going on. Went to the doctor, they gave me the blood test, said that I was positive for celiac. So at that time, I didn't know what it was. I did all my own research and tried to eat gluten-free to the best of my knowledge. Finally had enough knowledge to be eating gluten-free accurately. For the first 2 years, I probably was consuming quite a bit of gluten, actually. My number one advice to you, if you think you have celiac disease, is not to start a gluten-free diet before you see a doctor or specifically a gastrointestinal specialist. The blood tests that they give are extremely inaccurate. They show lots of false negatives, and false positives. The solution to this is actually to have an upper endoscopy done, where pretty simple procedure, sounds kind of intimidating, but you get put under some sort of anesthetic and they put a little camera down you and they take a little biopsy of your villi and see if it's damaged. And this is the only way right now to tell if someone actually has celiac disease. It's very hard to diagnose just having a conversation with a doctor about your symptoms, because a lot of the symptoms cross between other disorders or diseases. Some common symptoms of celiac, sometimes there are none, and sometimes there are a lot. So one you hear get thrown out there is dermatitis herpetiformis, which is a type of skin rash. It's probably one of the least common symptoms of celiac disease. The more common ones are malnourishment, which can lead to either excess weight or decreased weight. It depends. Other symptoms have to do more with your immune system. When you don't have nutrients, your immune system does not operate properly. So you get sick a lot, or you have warts that you're not going to get rid of. Things that most healthy individuals' immune systems would take care of. But someone with celiac who's immunodeficient would not be able to attack that bacteria and get rid of it properly. We can kind of thank the fad of a gluten-free diet for awareness. There's a lot of resources for individuals with celiac disease these days. So you can go to celiac.org. There's a lot of information there. You can talk to a dietitian or a GI specialist. That's all I really have for everybody today. What I'd just like you to take away is, if you think you have celiac, do not start a gluten-free diet before you see your doctor. Super important. If you have any questions for me, I will leave my email in the description below. And thanks for watching.